Hello, my dear friends. Imagine yourself seated in a grand hall, the flickering light of torches casting shadows on the ornate walls, the air thick with the tantalizing aroma of exotic spices and roasted meats. Welcome to the opulent world of ancient Rome, where banquets were not merely meals, but extravagant spectacles designed to impress and indulge. You probably once survived this feast, as you feast your eyes on dishes that defy modern sensibilities. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Picture the scene, guests reclining on couches, laughter mingling with the clinking of goblets, while the servants scurry about with trays piled high with the strangest fairy world where anything seems possible, yet some of the offerings would make today's diners squirm. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. In ancient Rome, the allure of banquets was irresistible, enchanting all who attended. To the outsider, these lavish events presented a glamorous image of society steeped in sophistication, where food was art and dining was the pinnacle of social interaction. The wealthy elite flaunted their status through grand feasts, adorned with golden platters and exquisite table settings. But behind this facade of elegance lay a shocking reality. Many of the dishes served during these gatherings were bizarre, some so strange that even the most adventurous eaters today might recoil. The Romans had a penchant for the unusual, often combining flavors and ingredients that would cause eyebrows to raise in disbelief. Consider the lavish banquets hosted by the likes of emperors and affluent patricians. As you visualize the scene, the air is thick with a mixture of roasted fowl and the sweet scent of spiced wine. Yet amidst this indulgence, the dishes included items like stuffed flamingo and peacock, prepared in ways that might make your stomach churn. These extravagant choices were not merely culinary delights, but expressions of wealth and power. The more unusual your meal, the higher your status among peers. A bizarre competition of culinary bravado. The Romans were known for their love of exotic flavors, often importing rare ingredients from the farthest corners of the empire. You can almost smell the rich fragrance of spices like silphium, a now extinct herb prized for its unique flavor, used to season everything from meats to sweets. Yet, the very quest for these exotic tastes led to some rather shocking practices. Silphium was so sought after that it became a symbol of luxury, a chilling reminder of how the Romans sometimes overexploited their resources, driving certain plants to extinction. As you drift deeper into this world of culinary oddities, it becomes clear that the Roman approach to food was not solely about taste. It often intersected with their sociopolitical landscape. The wealthy dined on delicacies that showcased their power, while the common folk relied on more mundane fare, a stark reminder of the class divide. The shared experience of food, while communal, often reinforced social hierarchies, pushing the bizarre and extravagant to the forefront of Roman dining. So, here you are, seated at a lavish Roman banquet. You may be entranced by the ambience, the laughter, and the clinking of glasses, but as the dishes are presented, you realize that the reality behind the glamour is a world of strange and shocking tastes that would bewilder the modern palate. As you ponder the oddities of these feasts, the next layer of this culinary journey awaits, where the exotic ingredients of the empire promise to reveal even more surprising truths about what the Romans considered delectable. As you settle into the rhythm of this journey through ancient Roman banquets, consider the exotic ingredients that were all the rage in the Roman Empire. Picture yourself wandering through vibrant marketplaces, bustling with merchants peddling their wares, spices wafting through the air and vibrant colors splashing across displays of fruits and vegetables. The Romans had an insatiable appetite for exploration, and their culinary practices reflected this. They sought out the most bizarre ingredients in their quest for flavor, often from the farthest reaches of their sprawling empire. However, what you might find truly surprising is just how odd some of these prized ingredients were. The glamorous illusion of Roman cuisine suggests a focus on fresh, seasonal produce and fine meats, showcasing the talents of skilled chefs. Yet, the shocking reality reveals that the Romans had a taste for the obscure, often valuing rarity over palatability. For example, imagine a delicacy known as silphium, a herb so coveted that it became a symbol of luxury. Its unique flavor was said to be a mix of garlic and something akin to modern-day asafoetida, and it was used to season everything, from meats to sauces. Yet this ingredient was so heavily harvested that it eventually fell into extinction, an eerie reminder of how the quest for culinary novelty often comes with a price. The Romans worshipped it to the extent that they adorned its image on coins, showcasing just how integral it was to their identity. And then there were the fruits and vegetables that left many scratching their heads in disbelief. Consider the cucumis milo, a type of melon that the Romans prized. You might find its sweetness appealing, but the Romans took it to another level, serving it stuffed with spices and nuts, a combination that would undoubtedly confuse the modern palate. Or think of cabbage, which they fermented, a precursor to modern-day sauerkraut. As you imagine that tangy zest, consider how it was often combined with fish sauce, enhancing flavors in ways that may not seem appetizing today. Let's not forget the peculiarities of certain meats as well. When exploring what the Romans considered gourmet, you might come across aqua marinus, or salted fish, which they enjoyed in various forms. The shocking reality is that the process of preserving these fish often involved using powerful salts and spices that could mask the less-than-fresh qualities of their catch. Therefore, what could have been a fresh, flavorful meal sometimes turned into a gamble of taste and texture. This love for the exotic also extended to the pleasures found in far-flung territories of the empire. The Romans had an appetite for bizarre items such as peacock brains and flamingo tongues. As you take a moment to digest that image, remember that these delicacies were not merely food, they were symbols of extravagance and culinary prowess. The notion of eating the flesh of a flamboyant bird like the flamingo, with its vibrant colors and unique flavor, may seem odd today, yet in Rome, it was the epitome of high dining. So why did the Romans embrace such peculiar tastes? The answer lies in their worldview, where the strange and exotic represented power, sophistication, and a connection to the far reaches of their empire. The elite sought to distinguish themselves from the lower classes, using food as a means to assert their status. In a society where public image was paramount, serving unusual ingredients became a way to showcase wealth while simultaneously delighting guests with the bizarre. As you reflect on the strange ingredients and their hidden meanings in Roman dining culture, it becomes clear that this unconventional culinary landscape was layered with social complexities. Each dish was more than just a meal. It was a statement, a conversation starter, and perhaps even a means of control, a stark reminder that even in culinary escapades, the Romans had their priorities twisted in curious ways. Now, as we continue to peel back the layers of this intriguing world, let's dive into the surprising staple of Roman kitchen scarum, the beloved fish sauce that added umami to nearly every dish and carried its own shocking secrets. As you immerse yourself deeper into the culinary secrets of ancient Rome, let's uncover one of their most beloved condiments, garum. Imagine the bustling kitchens of Rome, where the heat of the sun mingles with the pungent aroma of fermenting fish. Garum was not just a mere seasoning, it was an integral part of Roman cuisine, much like how salt and pepper are staples today. The glamour of garum lies in its revered status among the elite and its ability to enhance flavors in dishes that would otherwise seem mundane. However, beneath this appealing veneer lies a shocking truth about its production and that might leave your stomach churning. Garum was made through a rather revolting process. Picture this: fresh fish, often the less desirable catches such as anchovies, were layered with salt in large vats, left to ferment in the sun for weeks or even months. The mixture would break down into a liquid gold, a briny sauce that the Romans used liberally, an ingredient that could elevate even the simplest of meals. The glamorous illusion is that this sauce was a culinary masterpiece, a complex flavor enhancer that could turn any dish into a gastronomic delight. But the shocking reality is that the smell during fermentation could be overwhelming, a stench that would send most modern diners running for fresh air. As you consider the implications of garum, think about how this beloved sauce was produced not only in bustling urban centers but also on the outskirts of towns, where the smell of decaying fish wafted through the air. In fact, garum was so ubiquitous that it became a significant trade item, with different regions producing their own unique variations. Imagine a marketplace filled with merchants shouting about the quality of their garum, some even claiming theirs was superior, akin to fine wines. The competition was fierce, with producers vying for the attention of chefs and elite households. Let's delve into why Romans were so enamored with this fish sauce. In their worldview, the flavor enhancement garum provided was essential for culinary success. The Romans believed that food was not just fuel, it was a social experience, a way to connect with others and display one's wealth. For the elite, serving dishes with garum was a statement of sophistication. It was often mixed into sauces or drizzled over meat, vegetables, and even desserts. The subtle umami notes of garum complemented a wide variety of flavors, and its salty profile was the perfect counterbalance to the sweetness of fruits. However, the question arises, why did they not shy away from such a potentially repugnant production process? The answer lies in their cultural acceptance of strong flavors and aromas, as well as the belief that fermentation was a means to preserve food. The Romans were innovators, highly skilled at using food science to their advantage. They understood the beneficial properties of fermentation, believing it brought depth and complexity to their meals. Garum wasn't just a taste enhancer. It was a way to showcase their culinary skills, an art form in itself. As you ponder the legacy of garum, it's fascinating to note that this ancient condiment has echoes in modern cuisine. Today, its descendants appear in forms like fish sauce and Worcestershire sauce, each carrying a hint of that same briny, umami essence that the Romans cherished. Just imagine how this ancient practice has traversed through time, evolving yet maintaining a connection to its roots. So, with the pungent allure of garum fresh in your mind, let's shift our focus to the fruits and vegetables that the Romans held in high regard. Some of these offerings were not only peculiar but also revealed a complex relationship between the Romans and their foodmen that intertwines with their societal norms and culinary creativity. As we glide away from the salty depths of garum, let's venture into the vibrant and often surprising world of fruits and vegetables that the Romans delighted in. Picture yourself wandering through verdant gardens, where an array of colours dances before your eyes, deep greens, bright reds and vivid yellows. The Romans had an appreciation for produce that went beyond mere sustenance. They celebrated the visual appeal, the flavours and the exotic origins of their fruits and vegetables. Yet, as you'll discover, some of these choices were rather shocking, often clashing with contemporary tastes and culinary practices. The glamorous illusion of Roman produce paints a picture of fresh, delicious fruits and colourful vegetables gracing dining tables. Take, for example, the use of pomegranates, a symbol of fertility and abundance, or the esteemed fig, sweet and juicy, often enjoyed as a delicacy. These fruits were indeed cherished, yet lurking beneath this idyllic surface was a preference for some rather unusual items that might leave you scratching your head in disbelief. Imagine the cabbage, which the Romans cultivated and consumed with gusto. To modern eyes, cabbage might seem unremarkable, but for the Romans it was a staple food, often fermented to create tangy dishes that paired with their meats. This practice might not seem shocking anymore, considering the popularity of sauerkraut today, but the Romans took it a step further, preparing dishes where cabbage was combined with garum, resulting in a combination that could perplex modern diners. And then there were asparagus and artichokes, vegetables that the Romans prized for their supposed aphrodisiac qualities. The glamorous image of these greens might lead one to imagine a light, elegant meal, yet the reality was that these vegetables were often prepared in ways that highlighted their bitterness. The Romans enjoyed them boiled or even fried, with heavy doses of sauces, sometimes even flavoured with more garum. It was a curious blend that might make you reconsider your own vegetable preferences. Let's not overlook the wild mushrooms either, which were often incorporated into Roman dishes. While today's chefs might seek these out for their earthy flavours, the Romans were drawn to the thrill of foraging and the possibility of encountering something poisonous. The shocking reality is that many of the mushrooms available to them were indeed toxic, yet this risk was part of the allure. The gamble added a sense of adventure to their meals. And what about the curious case of chickpeas? These humble legumes were a mainstay in Roman diets, often prepared in stews or ground into flour for various dishes. The surprising twist is that they were also used in desserts. The Romans had a knack for mixing sweet and savoury, and their chickpea desserts, sweetened with honey and spices, would likely baffle modern palates. This preference for the unusual can be traced back to the Romans' worldview, which celebrated variety and the excitement of the exotic. The culinary practices of the time were not just about sustenance, they were a reflection of social status and cultural identity. The more bizarre the ingredients, the more one could showcase their wealth and sophistication. In this context, the strange fruits and vegetables served as a means to assert one's place in society, to flaunt what was rare and unusual. As you envision the colourful offerings on a Roman table, it's worth noting that the Romans were also deeply influenced by their geography. The vast territories they controlled allowed them to access a plethora of produce, combining flavours and ingredients that were previously unfathomable. This geographical diversity spurred an adventurous spirit in culinary experimentation that resonates even today. Now that we've peeled back the layers of Roman produce, revealing both its charm and the oddities within, let's explore a particularly curious and controversial delicacy, the mysterious dormouse. This small creature, once the staple on Roman tables, invites us to question the bounds of culinary norms and the lengths to which the Romans would go to satisfy their appetites. As we transition from the vibrant greens and curious fruits of ancient Rome, let's delve into one of their most peculiar culinary traditions, the consumption of dormouse. Picture yourself in a bustling Roman market, the earthy scent of freshly harvested produce mingling with the aroma of roasted meats. As you meander through the stalls, your eyes might catch sight of a vendor proudly displaying small, furry dormouse, a delicacy that many of the elite considered a culinary treasure. While you may find the idea of eating these adorable creatures shocking, they held a significant place in Roman society, revealing much about their palate and cultural practices. The glamorous illusion surrounding dormice is that they were a luxurious treat, often served at banquets or special occasions. Roman aristocrats showcased their wealth and sophistication by indulging in these sweet, succulent morsels. The dormouse was not just a food item. It became a status symbol, a dish that epitomized the excesses of the elite. But what might make you pause is the shocking reality of how these creatures were prepared and served, often in ways that would bewilder the modern diner. Imagine the dormice being collected and fattened before being prepared for the table. The Romans had a peculiar method of feeding them nuts and honey, transforming them into delicacies that were both sweet and savory. After a period of being pampered, the dormice were then cooked, often stuffed with a mixture of minced meat, spices, and even more nuts. All of this culminated in a dish that, while lavish and impressive in presentation, raises eyebrows when we consider the ethical and culinary implications of such indulgence today. As you ponder the implications of consuming dormice, it's essential to understand the cultural significance they held for the Romans. For them, dining was not merely about nourishment, it was an experience that reflected social status and culinary creativity. The inclusion of dormice on a menu was a conversation starter, a way to engage guests and leave a lasting impression. Serving dormice at a banquet was akin to offering a rare gem, a testament to the host's wealth and resources. The Romans were known for their adventurous culinary spirit, often embracing the bizarre and unconventional. This tendency is evident in their willingness to consume foods that many today would not even consider. The consumption of dormice is a prime example of how cultural norms shape our perception of food. While you might squirm at the thought of eating a small rodent, for the Romans, it was a cherished delicacy, deeply entrenched in their culinary fabric. So why did dormice find their way onto the dining tables of the Roman elite? The answer lies in the cultural significance of the dish, which spoke volumes about the host's willingness to push gastronomic boundaries. In a society where public image and class distinctions were paramount, serving rare and unusual dishes like dormice was a way to establish one's place at the top of the social pyramid. As you take a moment to digest this shocking reality, consider how the Romans' relationship with food often mirrored their political and social structures. The culinary choices they made were a reflection of their values, aspirations, and identities, allowing us today to peel back the layers of their society through the lens of their dining habits. Now that we've explored the curious and controversial practice of dormice consumption, let's shift our focus to another layer of Roman culinary oddities, unusual meats that graced the tables of the elite, from flamboyant peacocks to exotic flamingos. These choices not only tantalized the taste buds, but also served as a shocking reminder of the lengths to which the wealthy would go to assert their status through the foods they consumed. As we step away from the curious world of dormice, let's turn our attention to the extravagant meats that adorned the tables of ancient Rome, meats that often sparked both amazement and horror among those who dared to dine on them. Picture yourself in a grand dining hall, the flickering candlelight illuminating a sprawling banquet table laden with platters of opulent dishes. Among the offerings you would find not just familiar fowl or farm animals, but an array of extravagant and bizarre meats that showcased the Romans' affinity for the unusual and their desire to impress. The glamorous illusion of Roman feasting paints a picture of sophisticated palates savoring delicacies like roast lamb or succulent pork. Yet lurking beneath this image is the shocking reality that the elite often dined on meats that many wouldn't even consider eating today. Peacocks, flamingos, and even exotic game from the far reaches of the empire were not merely menu items, they were status symbols that communicated wealth and power. Imagine the shock of seeing an elaborately roasted peacock, with its vibrant feathers arranged artfully around the dish, served to hungry guests. It was not just food. It was a spectacle. Consider the flamboyant flamingo, a bird often seen as a symbol of elegance and grandeur. For the Romans, consuming flamingo was akin to a modern-day chef presenting caviar or truffles. The meat was said to be tender and flavorful, but the mere thought of eating such an iconic bird raises eyebrows in contemporary society. How could a culture that celebrated beauty choose to feast on such a creature? The answer lies in the Roman worldview, which valued rarity and extravagance, often over the more mundane aspects of culinary delight. The preparation of these exotic meats was just as extravagant as the dishes themselves. To serve a peacock, for instance, it was not enough to simply roast it. The Romans would often prepare it in elaborate fashions, sometimes stuffing it with fruits, spices, and nuts before roasting it to perfection. This focus on presentation was paramount. The dish had to dazzle as much as it had to satisfy. The shocking reality is that many of these extravagant presentations veiled the true nature of the meals. What may have started as a beautiful dish could quickly become a testament to excess, with the underlying flavors being masked by a barrage of spices and sauces. The question arises, Why did the Romans indulge in such extravagant meats? In part, it was a societal need to display power and wealth. The consumption of rare and exotic meats served as a statement of one's social standing, a way to show off resources and connections. For the elite, dining was a performance, and the more extravagant the dish, the greater the applause. It was not merely about taste, it was about creating memorable experiences that would be talked about long after the banquet had ended. But there's more to this culinary tale. The Romans often took their fascination with unusual meats even further, experimenting with various preparations and combinations that would shock the modern palate. Imagine a dish where the meat of a bird was mixed with rich sauces, fruits, and even nuts, providing a symphony of flavors that might confuse rather than interest today's diners. In their quest for innovation, the Romans blended sweet and savory in ways that were wholly unique to their culinary landscape. As you contemplate this peculiar side of Roman dining, consider how the exotic meats they consumed reflected not just a culinary preference, but a broader cultural narrative. The lengths to which they went to procure and serve these delicacies reveal insights into their values, aspirations, and the complexities of their society. With the feathers of peacocks and the flavors of flamingos still lingering in your imagination, let's now shift focus to the drinks that accompanied these opulent meals. From honeyed wines to spiced beverages, the Roman penchant for unusual drinks provides yet another layer to their culinary adventures, revealing even more about their tastes and traditions. As we move away from the extravagant meats that once graced the tables of ancient Rome, let's now explore the realm of beverages that accompanied these lavish feasts. Imagine yourself seated at a grand banquet, the air filled with the sounds of laughter and conversation, while servers move gracefully between tables, pouring rich, aromatic drinks into ornate goblets. The Romans had a penchant for crafting unique beverages, with honeyed wines and spiced concoctions becoming staples of their social gatherings. Yet, as you'll discover, the world of Roman drinking was as bizarre as it was delightful, revealing much about their cultural practices and preferences. The glamorous illusion surrounding Roman beverages suggests a sophisticated approach to wine, one that would rival even the finest vintages today. Wine was indeed a central component of Roman dietary habits, often consumed daily. Yet, lurking beneath this image of vineyard sophistication lies a shocking reality. The Romans had a penchant for mixing their wine with a plethora of ingredients that would baffle the modern palate. Instead of savoring a pure, unadulterated vintage, they often diluted their wines with water, herbs, and even spices, creating concoctions that were less about the grape and more about the overall flavor experience. Imagine a lavish banquet where guests sip on a mixture of wine infused with spices like coriander, cinnamon, and even pepper. The Romans believed that these additions enhanced the wine's flavor, creating an exotic drink that was not only refreshing but also medicinal. The shocking reality is that many of these drinks would likely seem overwhelming or unpalatable today, yet they were highly regarded in Roman society. For them, the fusion of flavors signified culinary innovation, pushing the boundaries of traditional drinking experiences. Honeyed wines were particularly popular, often sweetened and spiced to create a dessert-like beverage. Picture the golden liquid glistening in the goblet, wafting sweet aromas that beckon you to take a sip. Yet, this wasn't just a simple wine. It was often mixed with fruits, herbs, and even nuts, transforming it into a complex potion that delighted the senses. The Romans enjoyed these honeyed blends during celebrations and special occasions, cementing their place as favorites in the grand tapestry of Roman cuisine. The question arises, why did the Romans go to such lengths to create these unusual beverages? Much like their culinary choices, it was about demonstration of wealth and social standing. A host who could present exotic drinks made from rare ingredients showcased their sophistication and ability to procure the finest items from across the empire. The lavishness of these beverages also served as a conversation starter, a way to engage guests and elevate the dining experience to one of art and spectacle. Yet, drinking customs in ancient Rome were also laced with social etiquette and symbolism. The act of toasting, for example, was a significant ritual, often accompanied by elaborate speeches that extolled virtues of health, happiness, and prosperity. It was not uncommon for guests to raise their cups filled with flavored wines, celebrating not just the food, but the very act of dining together, reinforcing bonds of friendship and allegiance. Imagine the clinking of goblets and the cheerful declarations echoing around the room, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie and celebration. As you ponder the significance of these unusual beverages, it's essential to recognize how they enrich the overall dining experience. For the Romans, drinking was not merely an act of quenching thirst, it was an important aspect of their social life, imbued with meaning and tradition. The beverages they chose to serve were reflections of their identity, their status, and their desire to indulge in the extraordinary. Now that we've explored the fascinating world of Roman drinks, let's turn our attention to how festivals and rituals shaped their culinary landscape. These celebrations often influenced food choices in ways that led to even more bizarre culinary creations that intertwined with their religious practices and communal gatherings. As we transition from the intriguing world of Roman beverages, let's immerse ourselves in the vibrant festivals and rituals that shaped their culinary landscape. Picture yourself in the heart of Rome, surrounded by the sights and sounds of a grand celebration. The streets are alive with the sounds of music, laughter, and the enticing aromas of food wafting through the air. Festivals in ancient Rome were not merely occasions for revelry, they were deeply intertwined with the culture and religion of the people, profoundly influencing the foods that were prepared and consumed during these events. The glamorous illusion surrounding Roman festivals paints a picture of joyous gatherings, where tables overflow with sumptuous dishes and fine wines. These occasions were indeed grand, filled with gaiety and indulgence, showcasing the best of Roman cuisine. However, the shocking reality is that many of the foods associated with these celebrations often had peculiar origins and were steeped in rituals that would raise eyebrows today. Take, for instance, the Ludi Romani, a festival dedicated to Jupiter, the king of the Roman gods. Celebrated with great fanfare, it included various events from chariot races to theatrical performances. The food served during this festival was often influenced by the religious connotation of the occasion. Offerings of sacrificial meat, often from animals such as sheep or bulls, were common. But what might surprise you is the preparation. The meat was often left to sit in the sun for the rituals to invoke blessings, sometimes developing an odor that would be considered undesirable by today's standards. The shocking reality is that while the meat was meant to honor the gods, it sometimes resulted in serving dishes that were less than fresh to the diners who attended. During these festivals, the concept of cenith meal often transformed into a showcase of culinary creativity and abundance. The Romans took great pride in preparing dishes that were both visually stunning and unusual. Imagine platters of stuffed piglets, adorned with fruits and nuts, served alongside wild boar, a symbol of strength and prowess. These dishes were designed to impress not just through taste, but also through their extravagant presentation. The idea was to create a spectacle that would be remembered long after the festival had ended. Moreover, festivals often served as a prime opportunity for experimental cooking. The Romans delighted in bizarre food pairings, and the celebratory atmosphere encouraged culinary whimsy. For example, during the Saturnalia, a festival dedicated to the god Saturn, social norms were turned on their head, and the usual rules of dining were disregarded. People feasted on a variety of odd delicacies, often prepared in extravagant ways. You can only imagine the spread. Dishes of fried locusts, snails in honey, and even sweets made with fermented fruits were all fair game in this spirit of indulgence and excess. The role of food during these festivals went beyond mere sustenance. It was a means of community bonding and cultural expression. The sharing of food in a communal setting reinforced social ties, allowing individuals to partake in a collective experience that transcended the individual. The shocking reality is that, while the Romans reveled in these moments of excess, their festive culinary traditions also reflected a society grappling with its values and priorities, pushing the boundaries of taste in pursuit of pleasure and spectacle. As you reflect on the impact of festivals on Roman food culture, it becomes clear that these celebrations allowed for a unique interplay of the sacred and the profane. The foods served were often tied to religious beliefs and rituals, revealing how deeply ingrained culinary practices were in the broader social fabric. With the echoes of laughter and the aromas of spiced meats lingering in the air, let's shift our focus to the role of food as a status symbol in ancient Rome. The choices made by the elite not only reflected personal taste but also served to delineate social hierarchies, revealing the extent to which culinary practices were tied to identity and power in Roman society. As we transition from the vibrant celebrations of ancient Rome, let's delve into how food served as a powerful status symbol among the elite. Picture yourself at a grand banquet, surrounded by the wealthy and influential, the air thick with the laughter of the privileged as they recline on their couches, indulging in a feast worthy of the gods. In this world, the dishes served were as much about power and prestige as they were about flavor. The choices made by society's upper echelons reflected deep-seated values and social hierarchies, revealing much about the Romans and their culinary customs. The glamorous illusion of Roman dining suggests a world of refined tastes and elegant presentations. However, the shocking reality is that the foods chosen by the elite often bordered on the bizarre, serving as a means of showcasing their wealth and access to rare ingredients. The very act of eating became a performance, where the rarity and extravagance of the dishes signaled one's place in the social hierarchy. Consider the frequent appearances of extravagant meats, such as peacocks and flamingos, at elite banquets. The selection of such unusual dishes was not only a testament to culinary bravado but also a strategic choice to impress guests and assert dominance. The message was clear: the more exotic the meal, the more powerful the host. As you imagine the vibrant feathers of a roasted peacock adorning the table, remember that this culinary choice was as much about spectacle as it was about taste. Moreover, luxury items like saffron and silphium were other examples of status-driven selections. Saffron, with its intense flavor and vibrant color, was reserved for the tables of the wealthy, often used to add flair to dishes. Silphium, now extinct, was a rare herb that enjoyed a similar status. The elite went to astonishing lengths to secure these ingredients, emphasizing how food was intertwined with their social identity. The shocking truth is that the quest for such rare items led to unsustainable harvesting practices that ultimately diminished their availability, reflecting a broader tendency in Roman society to prioritize luxury at the expense of sustainability. The gluttony of the elite was often criticized by philosophers and writers of the time, who lamented the excesses of the wealthy. Juxtaposed against the backdrop of poverty that many experienced, the consumption of extravagant dishes became a point of contention. The elite dined on foods that were not merely rare, but sometimes extravagant to the point of absurdity. Imagine a dish made from the brains of a flamingo, served as a testament to culinary excess. While the wealthy indulged in bizarre delicacies, the common citizens often struggled to afford even the most basic fare. The shocking reality of this disparity serves as a reminder of how food can reflect social divides, revealing the stark contrasts in Roman society. Food also acted as a means of creating alliances and asserting influence within the political landscape. The practice of inviting influential guests to lavish banquets was a strategic maneuver, fostering connections and solidifying power dynamics. Where wealthy Roman hosted a sumptuous feast filled with extravagant dishes, they weren't merely showcasing their culinary skills, they were engaging in a complex dance of politics, social status, and cultural identity. Each dish served at these gatherings carried significance and meaning, underscoring the intricate relationship between food and power. As you reflect on the role of food as a status symbol in ancient Rome, it becomes evident that culinary choices were not solely based on flavor or preference. They were deeply tied to societal constructs, reinforcing hierarchies and demonstrating wealth in a world where public image was paramount. Now that we've explored the intricate relationship between food and status in ancient Rome, let's step into the kitchens of these grand households. We'll uncover the shocking realities of food preparation and hygiene practices of the time, revealing a side of Roman culinary life that contrasts starkly with the opulence seen at the feasting tables. As we move away from the grand banquets and lavish displays of wealth, let's step into the kitchens of ancient Rome, where the realities of food preparation reveal a stark contrast to the elegance of the dining room. Picture yourself in a bustling Roman kitchen, filled with the sounds of chopping, boiling, and the occasional shout from the cooks directing the flow of busy servants. This environment, while essential to the culinary practices of the time, was often far from the ideals of cleanliness and hygiene that we hold today. The glamorous illusion of a Roman kitchen showcases skilled chefs deftly preparing exquisite dishes, infused with rich flavors and adorned with vibrant presentations. Yet the shocking reality is that the kitchens of ancient Rome were often unsanitary, rife with practices that would send modern health inspectors into a panic. The Roman love for fresh ingredients was often overshadowed by the lack of proper food safety measures. Imagine raw meats being prepared in spaces where cross-contamination was a given, with little regard for how long food had been left out in the warm Mediterranean air. Consider the use of large wooden boards for preparation, where meat, vegetables, and even fish were haphazardly chopped together. The lack of refrigeration meant that leftovers were often repurposed in creative yet questionable ways. Leftover meats from the previous day's feast might be mixed into a stew, their flavors mingling with whatever else was at hand, regardless of their freshness. The shocking truth is that the Romans had a somewhat cavalier attitude toward food spoilage, often relying on heavy seasoning and the masking properties of garum to cover up any unpleasant tastes. Delving deeper into this chaotic culinary world, one finds that the kitchens were also home to various pests, from rodents to insects. Imagine the sight of a kitchen infested with flies buzzing around the open dishes, or the sound of scurrying mice seeking out crumbs. For the modern diner, this is unthinkable, but for the Romans, it was just another part of life. The absence of the sanitation standards we take for granted today meant that kitchens were often dirty, and the food prepared within them was not always safe. The question arises, why did the Romans allow such conditions to persist? The answer lies in their cultural norms and beliefs about food and health. Many Romans subscribed to the notion that strong flavors and spices could counteract any potential ill effects of spoiled food. They also believed in the power of experience. A cook's skill was often emphasized over the cleanliness of their kitchen. If a dish tasted good, it was deemed acceptable, regardless of how it was prepared. This mindset allowed for a cultural acceptance of risks that we would find alarming today. Moreover, the social hierarchy played a significant role in these kitchen practices. Wealthy households could afford to employ numerous servants, and those with less means often relied on the same staff for various tasks, leading to a lack of specialization or attention to hygiene. The shocking reality is that the conditions in kitchens were often a reflection of broader societal issues: inequality, lack of education about food safety, and the sheer volume of food required to cater to the demands of the elite. As you navigate this unvarnished view of Roman kitchens, it becomes clear that the culinary practices of the time were complex and layered with contradictions. The grandeur of Roman dining was often built on a foundation of unsanitary practices and risky food preparation methods, a reality that challenges the romanticized notions we may have about their cuisine. Now that we've peeled back the curtain on the kitchens of ancient Rome, exposing the sometimes grim realities of food preparation, let's explore the peculiar flavor combinations that the Romans embraced. Their adventurous palate often led to mixing the unmixable, creating unique culinary experiences that reveal their innovative spirit and willingness to experiment. As we step away from the bustling kitchens of ancient Rome, let's dive into the peculiar flavor combinations that characterize their adventurous culinary spirit. Picture yourself at a lavish feast, surrounded by an array of dishes that not only tantalize the eyes, but also challenge the very notion of taste. The Romans were known for their willingness to explore the unconventional, mixing ingredients in ways that would likely leave modern diners scratching their heads in confusion. Their approach to flavor was as bold as it was innovative, often leading to combinations that straddled the line between delightful and bizarre. The glamorous illusion of Roman cuisine may evoke images of refined flavors and carefully curated dishes. However, the shocking reality reveals a culture that thrived on culinary experimentation, resulting in some truly astonishing pairings. Imagine a platter of roasted meats, glazed with a sauce made from honey and vinegar, or a dish of fish topped with a sprinkling of crushed nuts and fruits, all crafted to surprise and intrigue the palate. The Romans believed in the power of contrast, often juxtaposing sweet with savory in a manner that would baffle contemporary tastes. Take, for instance, the use of honey in savory dishes. The Romans had a fondness for drizzling honey over roasted meats, creating a sweet glaze that was both unexpected and delightful. Picture a juicy lamb leg adorned with a honey mustard glaze, its flavors mingling in a way that would leave your taste buds in awe. This penchant for sweet-savory combinations extended to their desserts as well, where fruits would often be paired with spices like black pepper or even herbs, creating a flavor profile that danced between the familiar and the extraordinary. Let's not overlook their use of garum, that pungent fish sauce mixed into dishes that one might think are incompatible. Imagine a creamy sauce made from cheese and garum, served with pasta or over roasted vegetables, where the umami of the sauce melds with the richness of the cheese. This unexpected pairing exemplifies the Romans' fearless approach to flavor, a testament to their belief that culinary innovation was paramount to a successful dining experience. Consider the role of pine nuts in their cuisine as well. Often used to add texture and flavor to dishes, they were sometimes combined with fruits like pomegranates or dates, creating a medley that encapsulated the Roman love for diversity on the plate. Imagine a dish showcasing roasted duck stuffed with pomegranates and pine nuts, each bite delivering a burst of flavor that is both sweet and savory. It's these combinations that reveal the Romans' adventurous spirit and their desire to push the boundaries of traditional cooking. However, why did the Romans embrace such peculiar flavor pairings? The answer lies in their cultural appreciation for novelty and a deep-seated belief that food should be an experience. To them, dining was not just about nourishment, it was a performance, a way to engage the senses and create lasting memories. The more unusual the combination, the greater the spectacle. Dishes that made guests pause and ponder were valued for their entertainment value as much as for their taste. This adventurousness also reflected broader societal changes. As the Roman Empire expanded, it brought with it a plethora of new ingredients and influences. The blending of different culinary traditions created a melting pot of flavors, encouraging Romans to experiment with what was at their disposal. The shocking reality is that this fusion of tastes not only showcased the Romans' ingenuity, but also demonstrated their willingness to embrace the exotic, transforming what might have been seen as strange into celebrated dishes. As you contemplate these bizarre combinations, it becomes clear that the Romans had a unique approach to food that was both innovative and reflective of their societal values. Their willingness to embrace the unexpected allowed them to create a culinary tapestry rich with flavors and experiences that continue to intrigue us today. With the flavors of extravagant combinations swirling in your mind, let's now focus on the influence of geography on Roman cuisine. The vast territories they controlled allowed for a diversity of ingredients and culinary practices, shaping food trends in ways that reveal the complexities of Roman society and its relationship to food. As we venture away from the bold and bizarre flavor combinations that characterize Roman cuisine, let's explore how geography shaped the culinary landscape of ancient Rome. Picture the sprawling Roman Empire, its territories stretching from the sun-drenched coasts of North Africa to the lush valleys of the Italian peninsula and the vast lands of Gaul. This geographic diversity provided an astonishing variety of ingredients and culinary influences, creating a rich tapestry that infused Roman cooking with both local and exotic flavors. The glamorous illusion that emerges from this diverse landscape is one of abundant cornucopia of ingredients available at the fingertips of the Roman elite. The vast expanse of the empire allowed for the incorporation of regional specialties, showcasing a wide array of produce, meats and spices. Imagine a Roman banquet table adorned with an assortment of dishes, each representing a different corner of the empire: olives from Hispania, figs from the fertile fields of Campania, and spices from the far-off lands of the east. It was a culinary journey without ever leaving the dining room. Yet, the shocking reality reveals that this abundance was not without its complexities. The desire for exotic ingredients often drove Romans to exploit resources, leading to overharvesting and the decline of certain foods. Take, for instance, the once coveted silphium, a herb that thrived in North Africa and became synonymous with gourmet cooking. Its popularity was so intense that it was harvested to extinction, reflecting the Romans' relentless pursuit of novelty and flavor. The irony lies in their desire for culinary excellence, which ultimately led to the loss of one of their most prized ingredients. The geography of the Roman Empire also influenced food preservation and preparation methods. With such a vast territory, local practices varied widely. In coastal regions, for example, fish was a staple, often served fresh or preserved using salting techniques, while in the inland areas, grains and legumes formed the foundation of many meals. Imagine a bustling marketplace in a coastal town, where the scent of freshly caught fish mingles with the briny air, while inland, the aroma of baking bread and simmering stews fills the air. The contrast between these regions underscores the adaptability of Roman cuisine, as dishes evolved to reflect local resources and traditions. Moreover, the trade routes established by the Romans allowed for the exchange of goods and ideas, further enriching their culinary repertoire. Spices from the east such as pepper, cinnamon, and cardamom found their way into Roman kitchens, transforming dishes and elevating flavors. Imagine the excitement of a Roman cook receiving a shipment of exotic spices, each one a treasure that could elevate a meal from mundane to magnificent. The embrace of these spices not only enhanced flavors, but also reflected a desire for sophistication and refinement in dining. However, this geographical diversity also meant that culinary practices were not uniform across the empire. While the elite enjoyed access to a vast array of ingredients, the common people often relied on simpler fare. Grain, legumes, and seasonal vegetables made up the bulk of their diets, highlighting a stark contrast between the dining experiences of the wealthy and the less fortunate. This disparity reveals that while geography provided a wealth of resources, it also reinforced social hierarchies, with the elite dining on exotic delicacies while the lower classes made do with whatever was available. As you contemplate the impact of geography on Roman cuisine, it becomes evident that the empire's vastness not only shaped the flavors of their food, but also influenced their cultural identity. The blending of regional ingredients and culinary traditions created a unique culinary landscape that reflected the complexities of Roman society. Now that we have explored how geography influenced the diverse and rich tapestry of Roman cuisine, let's turn our attention to the fascinating intersection of food and medicine in ancient Rome. The beliefs surrounding food as a healing agent will reveal yet another layer of complexity in their relationship with what they consumed. As we transition from the rich geographical influences on Roman cuisine, let's delve into the fascinating intersection of food and medicine in ancient Rome. Imagine yourself amidst the bustling streets of Rome, where merchants hawk their wares and philosophers ponder the nature of health and wellness. In this vibrant world, food was not merely seen as a source of sustenance. It was also viewed as a vital component of health, imbued with the power to heal and restore balance to the body. The glamorous illusion of Roman medicinal practices suggests a sophisticated understanding of nutrition and wellness, where foods were carefully chosen for their health benefits. Roman physicians, influenced by earlier Greek traditions, attributed therapeutic properties to various foods and herbs. Imagine a doctor prescribing a dish of barley porridge, rich in nutrients, to strengthen a patient's constitution, or recommending the consumption of figs for their laxative properties. This idea that food could serve as medicine reflected a holistic approach to health that would resonate with contemporary notions of nutrition. However, the shocking reality reveals that many Roman beliefs about food and health were steeped in superstition and a limited understanding of actual nutrition. The Romans often turned to bizarre remedies that would raise eyebrows today. For instance, they believed that consuming certain animal parts, such as the heart of a lion or the brain of a dormouse, could impart strength and vitality. Imagine the bewilderment of a modern diner confronted with such prescriptions, where food was not just about taste but also about mystical properties believed to enhance one's power or health. Take the use of garum, that pungent fish sauce we know so well. The Romans believed it to have medicinal benefits, often recommending it as a remedy for various ailments, ranging from digestive issues to infections. The shocking truth is that while fermentation can create beneficial compounds, the consumption of garum was not without risks, especially when made from questionable ingredients or prepared in unsanitary conditions. This illustrates a broader truth about Roman health practices. While they sought to use food as healing, their methods could often lead to more harm than good. Furthermore, consider the role of spices in Roman medicine. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cumin were highly prized not only for their flavor, but also for their alleged health benefits. Romans often incorporated these into their diets with the belief that they could ward off illnesses or improve vitality. Imagine a wealthy Roman dining on a lavish meal infused with an array of spices, convinced that each bite fortified their health. The shocking reality, however, is that while spices have health benefits, the specific beliefs surrounding their efficacy often lacked scientific grounding. The Romans also practiced food avoidance based on health beliefs. Certain foods were deemed unsuitable for particular conditions. For example, individuals suffering from fevers were advised to avoid rich and fatty foods, instead opting for lighter fare. This practice highlights their understanding of the need for dietary modifications in response to health conditions, though often driven by anecdotal evidence rather than rigorous scientific inquiry. So why did the Romans intertwine food with their medical practices in such a profound manner? The answer lies in their worldview, where mind, body, and spirit were interconnected. Health was seen as a balance, and food played a crucial role in maintaining that equilibrium. As a result, dining became a ritual that encompassed not only pleasure, but also well-being, demonstrating how deeply ingrained the belief in food as medicine was within Roman culture. As you reflect on this fascinating relationship between food and medicine in ancient Rome, it becomes clear that their culinary practices were not only about flavor and sustenance, but also about a broader quest for health and vitality. Now that we have examined the intersection of food and medicine, let's turn our attention to the voices of dissent that emerged against the culinary excesses of Roman dining. Critics of the lavish feasts and extravagant practices questioned the ethical implications of such indulgence, offering a counter-narrative to the opulence we've explored thus far. As we step away from the complex relationship between food and medicine in ancient Rome, let's explore the voices of dissent that emerged in response to the culinary excesses of the wealthy elite. Imagine yourself in the vibrant public squares of Rome, where philosophers and critics engage in passionate debates about morality, ethics, and the social responsibilities of the powerful. The lavish banquets, overflowing with exotic dishes and fine wines, became a focal point of criticism, sparking discussions about the ethics of indulgence amidst widespread poverty. The glamorous illusion of Roman dining suggests a world of abundance and celebration, where the elite feasted in opulent surroundings. Yet, the shocking reality is that many prominent philosophers and writers of the time decried this excessive lifestyle, arguing that such extravagant displays were not only morally questionable but also detrimental to society as a whole. The disparity between the wealthy and the poor became increasingly apparent, and the critics sought to expose the ethical dilemmas inherent in such indulgence. One of the most vocal critics was the philosopher Seneca, who cautioned against the dangers of excess. He believed that the pursuit of pleasure and luxury could lead to moral decay, undermining the values of temperance and restraint. Imagine Seneca standing before a crowd, passionately arguing that the true measure of a person lies not in the extravagance of their meals, but in their character and virtue. He urged the elite to reconsider their lavish lifestyles, advocating for a more moderate approach to dining that valued sustainability over excess. Similarly, the poet Juvenal used his sharp wit to critique the opulence of Roman banquets. In his satires, he painted vivid pictures of the excesses of the wealthy elite, juxtaposing their extravagant feasts with the struggles of the common people. His biting commentary served to highlight the hypocrisy of the elite, who indulged in rare delicacies while many went hungry. Imagine him describing the absurdity of a banquet where peacock brains were served, as he questions the morality of such choices in a society rife with inequality. These dissenting voices shed light on the hypocrisy and moral dilemmas surrounding Roman dining culture. Critics argued that the excessive consumption of food and drink was not only a display of wealth but also an act of ignorance toward the plight of the less fortunate. The shocking reality is that while the elite reveled in their culinary excesses, the majority of the population struggled to meet their basic needs, creating a significant moral divide. In response to these critiques, some elites began to recognize the need for change. A few sought to use their wealth more responsibly, sponsoring public feasts for the poor or promoting food distribution initiatives. However, these gestures often seemed more like attempts to assuage guilt than genuine efforts to address systemic issues. The critics of excess dined in a precarious environment, where the power dynamics of society made it difficult to enact real change. So, why did these voices of dissent matter? They served as a moral compass for Roman society, challenging the status quo and encouraging a re-evaluation of values. Their criticisms highlighted the interconnectedness of food, ethics and social responsibility, reminding the elite that their choices were not made in a vacuum. These philosophical discussions provided a framework for understanding the impact of culinary practices on society, urging the wealthy to reflect on their role and responsibility within the broader community. As you contemplate the dissenting voices that emerged against the extravagance of Roman dining, it becomes clear that the cultural dialogue surrounding food extended well beyond the dining table. These conversations reveal the complexities of Roman society and its values, offering insights into the ethical implications of culinary choices. Now that we've examined the criticisms of excess in Roman dining, let's explore the enduring legacy of Roman cuisine. We'll discover how many of their culinary practices have persisted through the ages, shaping modern food culture and leaving echoes of their influence in kitchens around the world. As we move away from the critical voices of dissent regarding Roman culinary excess, let's turn our attention to the enduring legacy of Roman cuisine. Picture yourself in a buzzing modern kitchen, where chefs of today draw inspiration from centuries of culinary history. The influence of ancient Roman cooking can still be felt in contemporary dishes, revealing how their practices, flavors, and philosophies have shaped modern food culture in profound ways. The glamorous illusion of Roman cuisine presents a world of sophistication, where dining is an art form that celebrates flavor, presentation, and the communal experience of sharing food. Many of the techniques and ingredients that Romans mastered have been passed down through generations, evolving yet remaining deeply rooted in their original principles. The shocking reality, however, is that some of these practices, once considered extravagant or peculiar, have become staples in today's culinary repertoire. Consider how the Romans embraced the use of herbs and spices, a practice that remains central to cooking around the globe. Their adventurous spirit in flavor combinations paved the way for the vast array of seasonings we use today. The introduction of spices like black pepper, cumin, and fennel into everyday cooking opened up new avenues for flavor, which modern chefs continue to explore. Imagine the bright notes of fresh herbs melding with savory meats or the warmth of spices transforming a simple vegetable dish into something extraordinary. The Roman influence on flavor creation still resonates in kitchens worldwide. Let's not forget the impact of Roman agricultural practices on modern farming and cuisine. The Romans were pioneers in farming techniques, promoting crop rotation and the cultivation of diverse crops. This understanding of agriculture has influenced modern farming practices, encouraging sustainable methods that prioritize biodiversity and the health of our soils. Imagine the vibrant produce that graces farmers' markets today, a reflection of the agricultural innovations that began centuries ago. Food preservation techniques, such as pickling, salting, and fermentation, are also legacies of Roman culinary practices. The emphasis on preserving food for future use paved the way for modern preservation methods that allow us to enjoy seasonal flavors year-round. Whether it's the tangy bite of pickled vegetables or the rich umami of fermented sauces, the Romans laid the groundwork for how we approach food preservation today. Moreover, the concept of dining as a social experience owes much to Roman traditions. The importance placed on communal meals, where friends and family gather to share food and stories, is a value that transcends time and cultures. Today, the act of sharing a meal remains a powerful way to connect with others, echoing the Roman belief that dining was an essential part of social life. Imagine the warmth, laughter, and clinking of glasses at a dinner table, a tradition that has roots deep in Roman customs. Yet, even as we celebrate the enduring legacy of Roman cuisine, it's essential to acknowledge the complexities and contradictions within their culinary practices. The extravagant feasts, The peculiar ingredients and the ethical dilemma surrounding Roman dining culture serve as reminders that the history of food is layered with social dynamics, cultural beliefs, and historical context. The shocking reality is that while we relish the flavors and techniques they contributed, it's crucial to also reflect on the societal implications of those choices. As you contemplate the legacy of Roman cuisine, it becomes clear that their innovations and practices have shaped not only the way we cook but also how we perceive food as a cultural artifact. The echoes of their culinary journey continue to influence modern cooking, reminding us that food is not just about nourishment but also about connection, identity, and the stories we share. With this deeper understanding of Roman culinary influence, our journey through the strange and fascinating world of ancient Roman foods comes to a close. Let's take a moment to reflect on the complexities of their dining practices and the enduring impact they've had on our food culture today.